At 27, Kazaki Arata is jobless. During a lazy afternoon at home, his friends invite him out for drinks. En route, he broods over his recent failed job interview. Even though he's without a job, he continues to feign employment around his buddies. As he's heading back home, his mother calls, inquiring about his interview. When he admits his lack of success, she informs him she won't be financially supporting him anymore. Disoriented by her decision, Arata's attention is caught by a mysterious man named Rio. This stranger seems to know a great deal about Arata's employment history, even pointing out he left his only substantial job after a mere 3 months. Identifying himself as a representative from the ReLIFE laboratory, Rio reveals that Arata is the chosen one for their new experiment dubbed ReLIFE. When Arata queries about the project, Rio elaborates that it's a year-long experiment with the lab taking care of all his expenses. Furthermore, they promise him a stable job at its conclusion. Intrigued, Arata finds himself leaning towards the idea. The subsequent morning presents Arata with a surprise. Nursing a mild hangover, he spots a much younger version of himself in the mirror. Recalling his conversation with Rio, he remembers the pill he was given which would revert him to his teenage years, with the intent of sending him back to school. As he's grappling with this new reality, Rio arrives, bringing along all the necessary school supplies. Although Arata hesitates momentarily, Rio encourages him, suggesting this is his golden opportunity for a fresh start. Motivated by Rio's words, Arata solidifies his decision, signs the contract, and clings to the promise of a job in a year's time. Starting his school journey, Arata immediately feels alienated being amidst peers a decade younger than him. In haste, Arata scurries to an empty spot at the back only to be halted by a girl with piercing green eyes, informing him he's taken her spot. He soon learns the seating arrangements were preset and displayed on the blackboard. Chagrined by his oversight on day one, Arata apologizes and finally settles into his designated place, only to notice that Rio is in the stained class. Before he can ponder this, their homeroom teacher, Kokoro, enters, expressing her enthusiasm for the upcoming year. Roll call begins, and Arata discovers Rio had been at this school the previous year too, which stirs doubt about Rio's true age. The green-eyed girl is introduced as Chizuru, projecting an aloof academic demeanor. When Arata's turn comes, he presents himself as a new transfer, leaving an impression with his matured manner of speaking. Beside him is a red-haired girl, Rina, nursing a cold. Directly in front of him is Kazuomi, and another new face, a bespectacled girl named Meina, introduces herself. She's eager to connect with Arata, knowing their shared newcomer status. This sparks a realization in Arata about making friends with high school girls, but before he can explore the thought further, Kokoro announces a surprise test. Arata is taken aback not having heard about the test, and to make matters worse, he has forgotten his pencil case. While frantically searching his bag, Kokoro spots a pack of cigarettes. Outraged, she confiscates them and demands an explanation. It takes a moment for Arata, a smoker and by mindset an adult, to understand her displeasure. Caught off guard, he stumbles to fabricate an excuse. With the test ticking away, Kokoro directs him to meet her in the faculty office post-classes. Reflecting on his tumultuous start, Arata can't help but think his first day couldn't have been more chaotic. Receiving the test paper, Arata realizes he's without writing tools. Rina, seeing his dilemma, offers him a spare pencil and eraser. Grateful, Arata gets to work. By the end of the tests, he's drained. Just as he thinks of heading out, Kokoro stops him, reminding him of their pending discussion. In the faculty room, she addresses the cigarettes, cautioning him about addiction. His punishment, an apology letter due the next day. As Arata departs, he's greeted by Rio, who inquires about his first day. Rio clarifies his presence in school. He's tasked with monitoring Arata's journey, assisting as a peer when needed. When Arata questions Rio's prior school year, Rio explains it was prep work. After all, how could an inept support guide Arata through high school challenges? Acknowledging Rio's rationale but lamenting the difficulty, Arata gets a frank reply from Rio. It's a needs rehab. The ensuing morning, Arata mentally gears up, vowing to conquer the experiment and land a job. Yet, his spirits plummet when he spots his abysmal test results. In stark contrast, Chizuru and Kazuomi have excelled, earning them roles as the year's class representatives. As Arata settles into his seat, Kazuomi clumsily attempts to cheer Rina, aware she had aspirations for the female rep position. His lack of finesse, however, only upsets her further. Watching their exchange, Arata contemplates if they might be dating given their evident closeness. However, his thoughts are interrupted by Kokoro, who proclaims that those who didn't pass would need to retake tests until successful. Arata's heart sinks, dreading an endless cycle of retakes throughout the year. Spotting his dismay, Rina and Kazuomi wonder if he too flunked a test. Revealing his dismal test scores to Kazuomi and Rina, they're taken aback by his performance. Sensing Arata's distress, Kazuomi offers to assist him in his studies until he fares better. At that moment, Anne, who had fared even worse than Arata, requests to join the study sessions. During lunch, Annie invites Arata for a meal. As he contemplates her sudden invitation, Kazuomi chimes in, suggesting it's a good opportunity to hash out their study plans. He also invites Rina, but she declines, choosing to eat with her volleyball teammate, Hanoka. Reaching the cafeteria, Anne, curious about Kazuomi and Rina's relationship given their closeness and matching earrings, inquires if they're dating. Arata echoes her sentiment. They're both taken aback when they realize how oblivious Kazuomi is to Rina's feelings towards him. At that juncture, Arata observes Chizuru in a disagreement with the lunch server. He approaches and discovers she didn't bring money, having anticipated the monetary reward for the class representative. Though puzzled, Arata generously offers to cover her lunch. Initially hesitant due to the high denomination he hands over, Chizuru eventually accepts, promising repayment the next day. Back with Kazuomi and Anne, the trio exchanges contacts to facilitate study coordination. Post-classes, Arata encounters Chizuru again. Through their conversation, he grasps her social struggles, stemming from her inability to read emotions or gauge appropriateness in conversations. With no friends, she wonders aloud about her perceived aloofness. Arata candidly admits her distant demeanor, but suggests that occasional smiles could make her more approachable to peers. Attempting to smile, Chizuru manages only a somewhat unsettling grimace. Observing this, Arata advises her to set the idea aside, encouraging her to take things one step at a time. He comforts her by emphasizing the ample time she has to forge friendships. Chizuru, however, counters this by pointing out they're in their final year of high school, making her feel the urgency. This conversation causes Arata to reflect his own derailed life aspirations. Suddenly, Chizuru proposes exchanging numbers to cultivate a friendship. Caught off guard but impressed by her forthrightness, Arata agrees, stating such genuineness will likely win her more friends. This affirmation from Arata draws a sincere smile from Chizuru, leaving him pleasantly surprised. Reaching home, Arata engages in a call with Ryo, who divulges having witnessed the exchange between him and Chizuru. As Arata playfully chides Ryo for prying, Ryo stresses the importance of being compassionate towards Chizuru, revealing she spent the previous year in solitude. Ryo further clarifies the terms of the ReLIFE experiment. At its conclusion, others will lose memories of Arata, but his memories will remain intact. Furthermore, Arata is strictly prohibited from revealing any details about the experiment. Breaching this will result in its abrupt termination and the erasure of his recollections. Absorbed in these revelations, Arata receives a formal texted message from Chizuru, reminiscent of a corporate email. He teasingly points this out, and her ensuing reply only reinforces Arata's perception of her quirky charm. As dawn breaks the following day, discovering the humorously folded money Chizuru had returned to him in his shoe locker, Arata can't help but be amused and curious about her inspiration. When he queries her at class, she reveals she sought online inspiration to make the repayment memorable, which makes Arata appreciate her sincere efforts at change. Concurrently, Kazuomi expresses his bewilderment at Arata's continually worsening makeup test scores. As Chizuru comes over to summon Kazuomi for class representative duties, she heeds his request to address him by his first name. This sudden intimacy catches Rina by surprise, and she shoots a curious glance towards Chizuru. Attempting a friendly reciprocation, Chizuru's effort at a smile unfortunately looks more eerie than endearing, leading Rina to misinterpret it as a taunt. Arata, having witnessed the entire episode, tries explaining Chizuru's genuine intentions, but Rina remains skeptical of Chizuru's awkward social skills. As the physical education class commences, Arata can't contain his amusement at witnessing Kazuomi's lackluster athletic prowess. However, when it's Arata's turn, he forgets that while he looks young, his 27-year-old body isn't as nimble. Consequently, his performance falls short, even compared to Kazuomi's. As they jest about their experiences, Kazuomi points out the athletic prowess of Hanoka, the volleyball team captain and Rina's close friend. Observing Rina's competitive spirit, Arata surmises she might feel pressured by Hanoka's capabilities, but they seem to share a warm rapport. While engrossed in his observations, Arata is confronted by an aggressive student, only for a taller, more formidable student to intervene, diffusing the situation and apologizing for the instigator's actions. Kazuomi identifies the duo as Akira and Nobunaga, childhood acquaintances with a history of mischief. In another part of the field, Chizuru makes an attempt to engage Rina in conversation but fumbles with recalling her name, resorting to an awkward placeholder. When Chizuru addresses Rina by the number she wore during her sprint, Rina is taken aback. It was especially surprising to her, considering they were both part of the class representative committee the previous year. Chizuru's attempt at an affable smile again seems more mocking to Rina. When Rina tries to offer a formal introduction, Chizuru, missing the cue, mentions her primary reason for speaking, to have Rina time her lapse. This leaves Rina dispirited. She had always viewed Chizuru as her rival, yet it appeared that Chizuru hardly recognized her. During Arata's sprint attempt, his eagerness backfires. Pushing himself too hard, he trips, hurting his knee and scraping his face. The whole class is stunned by Arata's athletic blunder, except for Nobunaga, who compassionately scoops up Arata and whisks him to the nurse's office in a rather theatrical manner. One morning, Arata spots Chizuru walking alone to school and decides to accompany her. Their conversation veers towards Arata's injuries, with Chizuru curious about his slow healing. As they approach the school, Rina happens to be there. She notes a genuine smile from Chizuru directed at Arata, but when Rina greets the duo, she receives Chizuru's usual unsettling smirk. Rina begins to suspect that Chizuru behaves sweetly with guys for attention, but might have a more manipulative side hidden. At home, Ryo completes a report detailing Arata's school year progression. He's content with the findings. In spite of the series of mishaps, Arata's high school reincarnation is progressing well. Ryo discloses that Arata is the second individual in their unique experiment and, in comparison to the first, is faring incredibly well. Lost in her thoughts, Rina reflects on the significance of the silver pin awarded to class representatives. It was emblematic of student achievement. For Rina, its importance was twofold. It was an accolade, and it allowed her precious time with Kazuomi, who consistently held the boys' representative position. As these memories engulf her, Kazuomi and Chizuru breeze past. Engrossed in their representative duties, Chizuru shoots Rina her characteristic, if awkward, smile before hurrying after Kazuomi. Rina's irritation peaks when she believes Chizuru is intentionally taunting her. At lunch, it's evident something's bothering Rina, but she remains tight-lipped about it. What upsets her is the feeling of not being seen as a significant rival by either Chizuru in academics or Hanoka in athletics. Although she holds no grudges against her close friend Hanoka, Chizuru's very presence irks her. Concurrently, Arata and Anne receive a stern lecture from Kazuomi due to their stagnant makeup test scores. During this, they observe Chizuru eating lunch solo. Spontaneously, Kazuomi wants to invite her over. However, before he acts, Arata intervenes, hinting it might not be the best idea. Anne quickly grasps the reason behind Arata's hesitation as she notices Rina observing the scene from a distance. But Kazuomi, misinterpreting Arata's caution, thinks Arata might just be envious if he invited Chizuru over. Feeling a pang of guilt for obstructing Chizuru's chance of company at lunch, Arata contacts Ryo once home. He suggests that Ryo might dine with Chizuru, offering her some companionship. However, Ryo declines promptly, pointing out that it would hinder his observation of Arata. Ryo also probes Arata's sudden protective instinct, considering Arata initially intended to be a mere observer throughout the school year. Before Arata can clarify, Ryo commends him for his perceptiveness and proactive nature. This leaves Arata introspective, questioning if he's perhaps acting too paternal, like an elder ensuring youngsters cherish their high school days. Meanwhile, these developments provide ample content for Ryo's report, and he's rather pleased with how Arata is adapting. At school, with Kazuomi preoccupied with other responsibilities, he advises Arata to self-study in the designated room. Meanwhile, Chizuru believes she's making headway in forging a friendship with Rina. Their exchanges of glances and her persistent attempts to smile give her this notion. However, when Chizuru makes a move to engage in conversation, Rina hastens away to join Hanoka for volleyball training. Their practice stretches late into the evening until Akira and Nobunaga arrive to fetch Hanoka. Choosing to remain a little longer for solo practice, Rina is entrusted by Hanoko with the responsibility of locking up and returning the room key. Left to her devices, Rina's mind becomes a maelstrom of tumultuous thoughts. She has always associated the cherished silver pin with being worthy of Kazuomi's attention. To her dismay, this symbol of validation is now in the hands of Chizuru, who seemingly is indifferent to its value. Lost in a sea of self-blame and mounting despondency, Rina questions her worth. After her extended practice session, Rina, on her way to the staff room to return the key, chances Chizuru engrossed in a conversation with a faculty member. Spotting Chizuru's school bag unattended, a rush of emotion propels Rina to impulsively snatch it, intending to abandon it at a nearby station. Yet, fate has other plans. Crossing paths with Arata on the stairs, whose en route to return the study room key, her dual possession of bags doesn't go unnoticed. Arata's sharp observation, coupled with the unmistakable resemblance of one bag to Chizuru's, puts Rina on the spot. Caught red-handed and overwhelmed, Rina's anxiety peaks. She attempts a hasty retreat, but in the process, her footing betrays her. A potential mishap looms, but Arata's agility saves the day as he swiftly grabs hold of Rina, averting a nasty fall. However, the misstep causes Arata to lose his balance, leading to both he and Rina tumbling down the stairs together. An unusual commotion echoes from the stairwell. Exiting the staff room to investigate, Chizuru discovers the duo unconscious at the base of the staircase. Regaining consciousness in the nurse's office, Arata learns from the attending nurse that Chizuru had come across them and assisted in moving their belongings. Querying the events that led to the incident, Arata recalls the accidental fall, and the nurse commends him for instinctively shielding Rina from the brunt of the impact. An abrupt call to the staff room requires the nurse's attention, leaving Arata to monitor the still unconscious Rina. This predicament stirs memories in Arata of his tenure and previous job, where an older colleague he was mentored by was subjected to workplace bullying. Overhearing whispered conversations maligning her deeply perturbed him, prompting him to question her about her inaction. She reminisced about a time when the dynamic between her and her tormentors was amicable and rooted in mutual professional rivalry. However, with time, the constructive competition morphed into destructive behavior, leading her colleagues to undermine and ostracize her. Rather than evoking anger, their actions filled her with sorrow. Snapping back to the present, Rina's stirring signals her return to consciousness. After confirming her well-being, Arata broaches the subject of Chizuru's bag in her possession. Rina's initial hesitance to divulge is met with Arata's gentle persistence, urging her to confront the issue. Relenting, Rina clarifies her motive wasn't theft, but a simple desire to inconvenience Chizuru momentarily. Arata ponders aloud, questioning if her actions signify a surrender in her pursuit of excellence, opting instead for petty vendettas. Recognizing the effort Rina invests, he expresses his disappointment as such actions tarnish her hard work. This outpouring of understanding shatters Rina's defenses, leading her to vent her pent-up feelings. She confides in Arata, revealing the weight of her efforts always feeling insufficient when measured against the achievements of both Chizuru and Hanoka. Even though neither Chizuru nor Hanoka recognize her as a contender, Rina's emotions spill over. In response, Arata offers a soothing touch, gently patting her head, asserting that her dedication has indeed fostered growth, albeit unnoticed by her due to her constant comparisons with the other two. His comforting words serve as a reminder to Rina that her efforts weren't in vain. After calming Rina slightly, Arata points out that she isn't alone in her struggles. He mentions that Chizuru, too, is consistently immersed in her studies, evidenced by her visit to the staff room earlier to seek clarifications on questions she couldn't answer independently. He adds that Chizuru is genuinely attempting to enhance her interpersonal skills, advising Rina to request Chizuru to smile next time they interact, which would reveal Chizuru's genuine intent. As Arata exits the school, contemplating whether his behavior resembled that of an overprotective elder, his thoughts are interrupted by Chizuru awaiting him by the school entrance. She's puzzled by Rina's possession of her school bag. Initially, Arata crafts a benign explanation, suggesting Rina held it to prevent theft. However, realizing the importance of honest communication, he corrects himself, revealing Rina's true intentions. Chizuru struggles to understand, having believed her rapport with Rina was amicable, as she consistently made efforts to connect through gestures like frequent eye contact and genuine smiles. Despite Arata's attempt to clarify, Chizuru's comprehension falters. Instead, she proposes a direct conversation with Rina to clear the air, considering it a necessary step. Before parting ways, Chizuru contemplates asking Arata about the emotional tug she felt observing his protective gesture towards Rina, but decides to tackle one issue at a time for efficiency's sake. Yet, Arata's curiosity about the imminent conversation between the two girls prevents him from departing, leading him to a concealed spot behind some shrubbery. To his surprise, he finds Ryo already staking out the scene. A tad irked at Ryo's perpetual inquisitiveness, Arata nevertheless joins him, both keenly observing the unfolding dynamics. As Rina steps outside, Chizuru immediately broaches the subject, candidly mentioning her chat with Arata. Rina's instinct is to sidestep the discussion, but Chizuru persists. Initially, Arata's urging for Rina to confront her issues resonates with her. Compelled to express her feelings, she admits to Chizuru her resentment towards her for overshadowing her accomplishments and winning the coveted silver pin. She's particularly irked, believing Chizuru mocks her with every shared glance. Chizuru, genuinely perplexed, denies any such intent. Recalling Arata's words, Rina asks Chizuru to smile. When Chizuru complies, Rina is hit with a revelation. She had entirely misconstrued Chizuru's intentions. In sheer astonishment, she asks Chizuru about her peculiar smile. Chizuru clarifies her goal was simple: friendship. She hoped her consistent smiles would forge a bond between them. Recognizing the misunderstanding, Rina can't help but laugh. Chizuru, while explaining her social awkwardness and her earnest attempts to improve, proposes friendship to Rina once more. Realizing Chizuru's sincere and quirky nature, Rina agrees, but only after offering a heartfelt apology. For Chizuru, forgiveness is instant, asserting that as friends, it's a given. Back home, Arata and Ryo reflect on the day's events. Arata ponders the wisdom of his advice to Rina, questioning if he's prepared her for the often harsh realities of adulthood. Rio comforts him, asserting that even if Rina forgets Arata post-experiment, the essence of his guidance will remain. He further posits that Arata's introspection signifies his own growth. Though miffed at Rio's interpretation, Arata doesn't challenge it. Meanwhile, Chizuru, curious about the emotion she felt seeing Arata's protective stance towards Rina, turns to the internet for answers. Discovering that such feelings might be tied to love, she's left bewildered. As the Golden Week holidays commence, Arata enjoys some downtime. Suddenly, a call from Kazuomi disrupts his relaxation. To Arata's surprise, Kazuomi and Anne are right outside, eager for a joint study session. Without any prior warning, Arata is taken aback when Kazuomi and Anne show up at his place. In haste, he conceals all the beer and cigarette paraphernalia, ensuring the room doesn't betray the scent of smoke before letting them in. As the study session commences, Kazuomi is baffled by their dismal performance, pondering aloud how they ever got admitted to their school. Even though the session isn't particularly intense, both Arata and Anne tire out quickly. With midterms looming, Kazuomi grows concerned. Glimpsing at Arata's calendar, Anne discovers notes about his past job interviews. Arata quickly confiscates it, wanting to keep that part of his past private. An abrupt phone call means Kazuomi must rush off to his part-time job, leaving Arata feeling awkward about being alone with a high school student. He suggests Anne accompany Kazuomi, but he shoots down the idea, emphasizing their need to keep studying. Trying to alleviate the situation, Arata inquires if Anne is truly comfortable being alone with him. Reassured by her affirmative response, he attempts to relax. At that moment, Rio, keeping up with his regular surveillance, eavesdrops on Arata. Recognizing Anne's voice, he hurries over. Inquiring about the notes Anne glimpsed, Arata admits they were job-related, discussing his former part-time position. To Arata's astonishment, Anne asks if he had worked at a specific convenience store. Confirming her suspicion, Anne then shares how she had met him there once. However, she recalls him looking more mature back then. Jokingly, Arata credits the mature look to his work uniform. But then Anne catches him off guard with a personal question. If he has a romantic interest. To his own surprise, the first person Arata thinks of is Chizuru. Caught off guard by the sudden shift in conversation, Arata's thoughts fleetingly drift towards Chizuru. However, he swiftly dismisses the notion, asserting that he's not romantically involved with anyone. Anne's subsequent confession takes him by surprise. She admits that she's been infatuated with him since their chance encounter at the convenience store. As she grows bolder in her approach, Arata, retaining his composure, halts her, advising her to be more cautious. Suddenly, Rio bursts into the apartment, creating a stir. Confused, Arata seeks an explanation for the intrusion. Instead of addressing Arata's query, Rio berates Anne. The revelation that Anne is Rio's colleague at work astonishes Arata. Anne divulges that her seductive play was a mere test, gauging Arata's reaction to an advance from a genuine high school girl. While her feelings were feigned, her story about their first meeting was true. Originally, Anne was assigned to be Arata's supporter, but due to unfinished training, Rio had to step in. Although Rio is displeased with Anne's unprofessional behavior, considering their mandate was minimal interaction with Arata, both offer sincere apologies for the distress they cause. Seeking solace in a drink, Arata graciously accepts their apologies, assuring them he's not deeply affected. As Rio pens a report on Arata's ongoing progression, memories of a former subject surface. Contrary to what he conveyed to Arata, Rio's last year in school was occupied with work. Rio grappled with reprimands from his seniors for overstepping professional boundaries. Heeding new directives, he curtailed his involvement, even denying assistance when his subject reached out, fearing that excessive engagement would compromise the experiment's integrity. During a designated assessment of Arata to determine his suitability as a potential test subject, Rio, having been dispatched for the evaluation, visited the store where Arata worked part-time. As Rio assessed Arata's disposition, he discerned that Arata would be an exemplary candidate for the study. However, his investigation was interrupted when Anne appeared, inquiring why Rio was scrutinizing the individual she was intended to oversee. Evasive, Rio responded that the directive came from their superiors. Accepting this, and then inquired about Rio's progress with his current subject. While Rio admitted uncertainty, emphasizing human unpredictability, he reassured her that he was following protocol. Regrettably, the initial experiment didn't yield favorable outcomes, and the subject remained unchanged at the year's end. Rio's superiors attributed the failure to his perceived lack of support. His reproach deeply affected Rio. He bore the weight of the responsibility, expressing remorse to his subject when conveying that the experiment's unsuccessful conclusion meant they couldn't assist with employment prospects. On Rio's journey back to the office, Anne intercepted him, offering consolation. As Rio ruminated on the conflicting expectations of his superiors, first to be hands-off and then to be more involved, Anne interjected with news. She revealed that Arata had been officially chosen for the next experiment phase, and it was decided Rio would guide him. Her words served as a reminder that Rio had to redirect his energies. Despite his lingering reservations, he refocused on Arata, and when the moment presented itself, persuaded him to join the study. Rio, alongside Anne, initiates arrangements to offer Arata support in the upcoming experiment. He chuckles at the irony of them sharing a class, given that Anne is technically his subordinate. Anne uplifts Rio's spirits, asserting that Arata should pose no challenges. However, Rio points out Arata's profound emotional scars, highlighting how Arata grapples with guilt over a significant loss in his past. This sense of accountability, Rio suggests, could hinder Arata's self-confidence and social interactions. Nonetheless, Anne is optimistic, believing they can assist Arata in confronting his trauma. She anticipates a promising outcome, especially after allowing Arata a brief return to adulthood to formally resign from his job. Observing Arata's enthusiasm for the experiment, Rio also holds hope for a positive transformation. In his official report, Rio conveys anticipation about witnessing Arata's journey, noting the emerging positive shifts in his mentality and actions. He ponders on the broader implications these changes might have on Arata's future. Midterm results are announced, and Arata's scores are disappointing. He has flunked 7 subjects, facing a significant amount of supplementary assignments. Summoned to the staff room, he's reprimanded by his educator, Kokoro. However, she praises his commitment and is confident in his potential to overcome these hurdles, provided he maintains his current perseverance. Arata is heartened by her words, recognizing that he could have chosen to give up but persisted instead. Unexpectedly, another student joins them in the staff room for similar academic concerns. Hanoka, the girls' volleyball team captain. She too has underperformed in several subjects. Kokoro reminds Hanoka of the importance of clearing her makeup tests, emphasizing that failing to do so might jeopardize her participation in the forthcoming volleyball championship. Following their meeting with Kokoro, Arata takes the opportunity to get to know Hanoka better. She shares that she's attending school on a sports scholarship, acknowledging that academics isn't her strong suit. She expresses her gratitude for her friend Rina, crediting her for making volleyball training sessions much more enjoyable. Later, Arata bumps into Chizuru in the classroom as she's preparing to head home. Aware that she usually goes home alone, he suggests they walk together, a proposal she eagerly agrees to. In a different scene, Hanoka wraps up her volleyball practice ahead of time, citing the need to prep for the supplementary exams. However, as she's about to leave, rain starts pouring down. She doubles back to the club room to retrieve an umbrella. But before she can enter, she overhears team members gossiping about her, commenting on how effortlessly talented she is. This triggers memories of a past incident at her former school. Overwhelmed by these recollections, she finds herself paralyzed, unable to enter the room. Just then, footsteps approach. Hanoka quickly hides around a corner. The newcomer is Rina. She too hears the whispers, but decisively confronts the girls. Defending Hanoka passionately, Rina highlights Hanoka's dedication and suggests the girls should channel their energies into training harder instead of gossiping. Embarrassed, the gossipers hastily depart, leaving Rina contemplating how to inspire more dedication from them. Concealed nearby, a moved Hanoka silently sheds tears, grateful for Rina's unwavering friendship. Desiring a more conducive study environment, Hanoka seeks out Akira, a friend from her younger days. They then embark on intense study sessions, burning the midnight oil together regularly. When the day of the makeup test arrives, Hanoka successfully clears them all, while Arata does not. Elated by her success, Hanoka, without hesitation, rushes to volleyball practice, even though the teacher cautions her about her visibly drained appearance. However, during the practice, the effects of the sleepless nights she spent studying catch up to her. She momentarily loses consciousness, which results in her tumbling, sending volleyballs scattering throughout the gym. Although she quickly recovers, one stray ball rolls beneath Rina's foot as she jumps, causing her to land awkwardly. The mishap leads to a sprained ankle for Rina, which requires a 2 to 3 week recovery. This means she might miss the upcoming tournament. Hanoka is racked with guilt, realizing Rina's injury stems from her own momentary lapse. She attempts to offer solace, suggesting that the ankle might heal in time. However, Rina, overwhelmed with disappointment, lashes out, highlighting the disparity in their natural talent. She vents that unlike Hanoka, who is naturally gifted, she can afford to miss weeks of practice and still perform well. With Hanoka on the team, Rina feels she isn't even essential, as Hanoka's talent alone could ensure their victory. These sharp words bring back painful memories for Hanoka from her past, making her emotional. Unable to hold back tears, she flees the scene, leaving a distraught Rina behind. Chizuru notices Hanoka's distraught demeanor and attempts to offer comfort. However, when probed about the incident, Hanoka evades the topic, choosing her words carefully. Later, after being discharged from the hospital, Rina visits Kokoro. She informs her teacher about the expected 2-week recovery period. While Kokoro is relieved as it provides just enough time for Rina to recuperate for the tournament, Rina is less optimistic. She believes that the missed practice sessions will make it impossible for her to compete at her best. Her decision to leave the volleyball team, Kokoro attempts to dissuade Rina, but Rina remains firm in her resolve. When Hanoka and Chizuru later encounter Rina in the hallway, Hanoka, overwhelmed by guilt, avoids eye contact and dashes away, leaving Chizuru puzzled. In the classroom after school, Arata, Rina, and Kazuomi remain engrossed in their studies. Seizing an opportunity, Arata discreetly exits, hoping to provide Rina and Kazuomi some alone time to perhaps kindle a romantic spark. However, as it turns out, Rina lingered not for company, but to avoid being seen limping. She advises Kazuomi to leave without her, but he insists on accompanying her. Observing her resistance, he deduces something is amiss and pushes for an explanation. In an attempt to stand, Rina's ankle pain causes her to stumble, prompting Kazuomi to assist her down the stairs. Although she accepts his aid, internally, Rina berates herself for her recent behavior towards others. The subsequent day, Chizuru dines alone during lunch, ruminating on the inexplicable behavior of her newfound friends. At home, Murata too reflects on the palpable tension among them, drawing parallels to his former workplace dynamics. His introspection is interrupted by a text from Chizuru, seeking to discuss a concern. When she arrives, Arata briefly becomes self-conscious about being alone with her, only to be distracted by a message from In, who cheekily informs him that she and Ryo are eavesdropping. Chizuru then opens up about the unusual behavior she's observed in Rina and Hanoka and wonders if Arata might be privy to any insights about the situation. Arata admits to Chizuru that he too is in the dark about the rift between their friends. However, he commends Chizuru on her heightened social awareness, noting that her decision to avoid confronting the issue directly might have prevented exacerbating the situation. Chizuru shares a painful memory from the previous year, when her intervention in a bullying incident only escalated the problem. Ultimately, the victim transferred to another school to escape the torment. Sympathizing with her, Arata shares a parallel experience. Instead of referring to it as a workplace incident, he narrates it as if it had occurred in his previous school. He speaks of a senior who was subjected to bullying, and despite Arata's intervention, the situation deteriorated. Chizuru, curious about the fate of the senior, inquires further. But Arata, overwhelmed by painful recollections, avoids the subject. His breath quickens, and he involuntarily clutches his neck, memories flooding back of the horrific discovery of his senior co-worker's suicide. Concerned, Chizuru moves closer to inquire about his well-being. Arata's troubled mind blurs reality, causing him to mistake Chizuru for his late senior. Overwhelmed with emotion, he pulls her into a tight embrace, fervently apologizing. Chizuru, understanding the gravity of the moment, doesn't pull away. Chizuru patiently allows Arata to regain his composure, gently probing about the reason for his apology. Once he's collected himself, Arata realizes the awkwardness of the situation and hastily lets go, apologizing for his impulsive reaction. Chizuru, rather than showing annoyance, expresses relief at seeing him return to his usual self. Redirecting the conversation back to Rina and Hanoka, Chizuru expresses her desire to mend the situation, disliking the ongoing tension. Arata shares her sentiment but fears repeating past mistakes. It's then that Chizuru passionately expresses her intent to confront and overcome her haunting memories instead of evading them. Offering her hand to Arata, she encourages him to similarly face his traumatic memories and conquer them. Encouraged by her sincere resolution, Arata agrees. The next day, they approach Hanoka, who's practicing volleyball after hours. As Akira and Nobuneva arrive to escort Hanoka home, they're puzzled by her absence from the gym. Heading towards the clubroom, they overhear Hanoka confiding in Chizuru and Arata about the origins of the current predicament. Feeling a sense of urgency, Akira quickly fetches Rina, with Kazuomi tailing behind in concern. They listen intently as Hanoka reveals her initial reluctance to play volleyball during her high school years.